All right. And we are live.
That's how gamers do it, right?
For another episode of Audiophiles Anonymous. Welcome everybody in the chat. Thanks to everybody who's joining us. We've got Tyler, we've got Chrono, we've got Precog. I don't know. I think Tyler's on my left.
I should be. Yeah.
I think it is.
We're
We are live. Yeah. Okay. Do that again. Yeah. So today we're going to talk all about gaming headphones and what we think are the best gaming headphones. And actually, Tyler, you recently did a live stream on that subject exactly. So, and actually, I think we should begin by kind of breaking down the different ways that we could use headphones in gaming situations. And the first, I tend to think there's probably like three different considerations. The first is like if you're, looking for headphones to play games where you have music going on in the background, and a lot of people who are like Twitch streamers and stuff like that will be looking for this kind of thing, where they're not necessarily focused as critically on the game audio itself, but rather just having good sound. And I think that really broadens the category into just what are good headphones, right, at various different price tags. The other I do think it's an important consideration though, because there's a lot of people who are I was saying Twitch streamers, and that's really what they care about most. When you constrain that a little bit to people who are looking for the other type, which is specifically to enjoy the game audio, you got two different types. I think there's the people who want their game audio to be pleasant and enjoyable, and you got if you're listening to, if there's something with explosions going on in the game, you want something that's got a satisfying way of handling that, good dynamics and stuff like that. And then there's the even more constrained category, which is people who are looking for specifically competitive advantage or competitive advantages in the games that they're playing, usually in FPS games, because I should say that's kind of where that stuff matters the most. I don't think it really matters as much for stuff like SC2 and Dota and whatever else that's also competitive, the sort of isometric top-down stuff. But for competitive FPS, I think that's kind of like the most specific category. We're going to have differences for the criteria and what we're looking for in gaming headphones there versus the other categories, right? So why don't I just throw it over to Tyler, and you can kind of fill us in on what your take was from that recent one you just did, your recent live stream.
And actually I'm really excited about talking about it today with you guys, because it's so much more enjoyable to discuss it with people that game or have different headphones and stuff like that to get their thoughts on it. But for me, like the big takeaway, honestly, and I was using only a PS5 controller for the whole thing to test, and then I did a quick music test with a RME ADI2 DAC amp thing, and but my biggest takeaway, honestly, was that most headphones are gonna be fine for gaming, because like it's at the end of the day, the sound, it's gonna be up to the developers to create the best sound for that game, right? They have to do the engineering, but there was definitive takeaways where like certain headphones were performing better in certain areas, like you're discussing, like for first-person shooters, I can see where this one would be better for that, or and what have you. But for your general average user of gaming, I think it was, my big takeaway was go with comfort and as many ease of use, just plug and play and features on the headphone, like, if that makes sense.
It's comfort is such a key thing too, though, because like I'll give you an example, like the Rad Zero behind me there. I actually have no problem, wearing that now, because that one is more comfortable. I think he's made he made it lighter by quite a bit, and it's still a heavy headphone for sure, but it's not. I don't have as many issues with comfort there, but I think if I were to be, playing games or something for a longer period of time, I probably would still have trouble with the comfort. It would be distracting from whatever it is, that's going on. So comfort, I think, is key. That's like a key criteria.
And
go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, so like that, I'm agreeing with you, and like I think that's because most people like until you get older and you have kids and responsibilities. A lot of people are like, even the streamers and that kind of stuff, dude, they're sitting there for hours, and like it's important to have those, like
and also the consideration of open versus closed depending on your environment, right?
Yeah, that's another. So, like, and when I'm looking down, just for, you mentioned a second ago, I'm actually responding to the chat on my phone because it's quiet and you won't hear the clicky clacks. So that's why I'm.
Sorry. By the way, if you see me looking at my phone, that's because I actually my computer's. I've said this every stream, but my monitor's actually here, so I can't see it. So I end up just checking everything on my phone. So
if you see me looking down at my phone, it's because I'm distracted.
I'm not distracted. I'm actually reading through chat and seeing something I can answer.
So the other thing I wanted to bring up is that, usually game audio actually isn't all that good. And I think this goes back to one of the comments that we saw recently on Twitter, where someone was evaluating the game audio for the new Watch Dogs game and said it was kind of, average, mediocre. The thing is, for most, let's say, typical gaming headsets, or honestly even speakers that you might find at like computer hardware shop, or Best Buy or something like that, they're not going to be good enough to where, as far as like technical performance and resolution, all this stuff, to where the mediocrity of the gaming audio matters or is as significant of a factor. Whereas once you start going up in resolution and detail and into more, like, let's say, quote unquote audiophile headphones, then suddenly you realize that the game's audio quality is actually really quite bad.
Yeah.
And have you listened to World of Warcraft voice clips? They're
not in a while, but I imagine that's.
Dude, I was listening.
Even the new expansion, they're terrible.
Like, I was doing
just put it on mute and listen to music the whole time.
Well, I was listening to Spider-Man. I was doing Spider-Man Miles Morales, and the music was pretty good in the background, but like a lot of like the weird notifications, they have these weird, and it was just like this mess. It was just this smeared mess of like, it was like, oh, that's horrible.
So usually, and I find this.
That runs into another issue though, which is the console.
I was gonna say,
cards, which are not. I mean, I know they're really touting them this generation, but it's unlikely that they're still that great.
Yeah, it goes to show that, especially for the console port stuff, the sound is an afterthought in the actual games themselves. Usually, now there are exceptions, so we should probably actually go over that. I mean, what do you guys think would be like the best game audio?
I mean, there's different. Actually, I would say that one thing I have to disagree with is that you mentioned earlier that more specific is the competitive market for headphones, and I actually think that there's more people looking for a good competitive like FPS or Fortnite or whatever headset than there are people looking for an immersive one.
Oh, more people, absolutely. I tend to agree
so
there.
It's more, maybe it's more specific, but I think it's actually has
it's a wider audience.
Yeah, wider audience looking for that sort of competitive.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Yeah,
the ambient one or whatever.
Yeah,
and that's what's caused recently, and especially because of the kind of collaborations that Drop has made, a lot more crossover between the gaming market and specifically with open back headphones. So I guess the audiophile market, right? So that's seen an interesting shift in recent years.
Yeah, I want to ask you guys about your take on the differences between like proper to like left and right normal high-end headphones and the, let's say, 7.1 simulated surround 3D kind of stuff you find commonly in on headsets. And is this in your mind just a marketing gimmick, or is there something to the simulated 3D thing?
Simulated 7.1, I mean, I guess I'll talk background. So I play a lot of Call of Duty, like an obscene amount of Call of Duty.
Obscene?
Imagine, yeah. I mean, I've been playing a lot of Black Ops Cold War, of course, and
that was the worst game that has come out in years.
Cold War is amazing. It's probably my favorite game.
Oh, I can't stand it. I tried it and I was like, no.
Get good, man. Get good.
Maybe
What?
when the like BR mode comes out, I'll be into that.
Oh yeah, Warzone. Warzone's coming out, I think,
That yeah
actually next week. So that's pretty exciting.
yeah.
But like, the first expensive pair of headphones that I ever bought was actually a pair of Astros back in like 2011.
Yeah.
So I think that was like Gen 1 or maybe Gen 2 of Astro's 840 system. And I always found that it was sort of confusing when you use the surround sound. And I mean, you kind of get used to it, but I'd say that, you lose quite a bit of sound quality when you go to the surround sound, because there's all this weird sort of
Well, any DSP is going to do that, yeah.
No, well, not always DSP. Let's just say that specific
gaming
engine is really odd. So what I find now is that if I use an Astro headset, I'd rather use just the stereo mode, because I'll find that the headphones raw imaging is usually better than what the surround sound can do. The only time where I've seen 7.1 work is on, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but this little sort of gaming DAC that Sennheiser makes. It's called the GSX 1000
that thing's pretty awesome.
or the GSX 1200, and that has Sennheiser's proprietary 7.1 engine.
Yeah.
And it actually works, and it doesn't sacrifice sound quality. It's actually really good. So for a long time, what I would do is I would have a 650, HC650 for music, but then when I would play, I would have a PC37X through a GSX 1000 because it was really good. And that's the only time where I've seen, like, in my experience, 7.1 work in a headphone.
Right.
Of course, because it's all simulated. You don't have seven drive. I mean, you don't have the 7 drivers in there.
So I think, I mean, that kind of stuff, a long time ago, when I feel like there would be fewer nice headphones available in the audiophile space.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of people who were probably trying to go from what they found with the typical kind of like 7.1 headsets to something potentially better. And I remember even back then, Linus from Linus Tech Tips made a video on, he was trying to test to see if people were more accurate. And it was a small sample size, of course, but he was trying to see if the 7.1 stuff made it more accurate than typical 2-channel stuff. And he found that it wasn't. And in some cases, it was actually wildly inaccurate, depending on which headphone it was. But one of the cool things I wanted to bring up was, even back, almost 10 years ago now, there was that sound card from Asus that was a Zonar Essence ST or STX, something like that. And what it allowed you to do, it was a sound card that had a headphone amplifier in it. But what it allowed you to do was you could put your own, it had its own simulated 3D setup. I think they called it Logic X or something like that. But basically, or Dolby Logic, that's what it was. And you could basically customize the 3D factor, like the surround sound factor. But I always thought to myself, even back then, like, and maybe this is wrong, but like, I always thought to myself, what 7.1 does, the simulated headphone 7.1 does, is it tries to simulate a surround sound speaker setup. But if you're wearing headphones already, the sound is coming from, left and right. So if you're wearing headphones already, it's already kind of like a sound bubble, So I never fully understood, the potential imaging advantages that might be there with 7.1 headphones, because really all you're doing is you're simulating the idea of speakers behind you, right? Which maybe it simulates an extra sense of distance, but I never found it to be all that competitively
Well,
useful.
I believe you have rear right, rear left, left right, front left, front right, and then center.
Yeah.
And then then there's more stuff that I don't even, because a lot of these are mostly for consoles, usually the ones that are surround sound. I don't even know if consoles let you choose surround sound in games, because what happens,
the newer ones,
some of them, but for example, when you play on a PC, what happens is that when you use a 7.1 headset, some of them, not all, will be identified by Windows as a 7.1 device. And that will let you enable 7.1 surround sound in game natively. But I don't know if that's actually a thing that always works on consoles. I like, for example, with the biggest game, which would be Fortnite and Call of Duty, especially when Warzone comes out again. I don't know if that's an option. I haven't checked the console menu for that game. So
Yeah.
That's something to consider. You might not even be getting like the full surround sound effect because it's not being detected natively as a 7.1 device.
Yeah.
So,
There's-
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say there's another factor too when playing. So there's a couple things. There's the playing on a PC and playing on a console as well. Those are two different things because you have two different ways of implementing stuff. So on top of the software in a PC, you have like Chrono was saying, is you have the DSP or the depending on how the Windows handles it or what the game is, you have those options. Then you also have your amps and your DACs, or depending on how you're using it, those factors come into play as well. And if you're using an amp or a DAC that has crossfeed in it, that will change things a bit. I've noticed with mine.
Actually, to give credit where credit is due, I saw something very cool on Batsy Tech's channel, which is he paired the GSX 1000 with like an Atom amp. So you could power any headphone while still getting access to that like 7.1 sound.
Right.
Cool.
That's cool.
It'd be interesting to try that out on something like the HD100, which is miles, ahead in precision of any other headphone that I've tried.
See. Okay, we'll get to that because we'll talk about like the actual headphones that we're going to recommend. But I just want to, he's got a working one. I just want to point out.
Oh, shut up.
We had to do it. I just wanted to point out
we have here, right?
Oh
no, he actually has the broken one.
Wait, he does?
Yeah, he does. I sent it to him a couple weeks ago.
Why? Is he gonna fix it?
No.
I'd be curious to try. So I was just gonna say we have like at least 3 of the different categories we talked about here represented. So Tyler, you're somebody. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you're somebody who, when you're playing a game and you're thinking of headphones for gaming, you're thinking about what's going to be most immersive.
Yeah, I'm usually more immersive. I don't really.
Chrono is definitely that, I imagine, but then also focused more towards the competitive stuff.
Oh no, for me it's when it comes to games, I don't think I've ever played a game and thought about immersion or anything like that. I've always been all high performance and whatnot. Right?
For me, it's whatever I can put on that I can then have the horseback riding simulator game that I'm playing on mute and then have music on in the background. So
horseback riding, are you talking about Red Dead Redemption 2?
Yes.
but that kind of game,
I grew up on a farm and we had a horse.
Yeah, you would want something immersive for the for open world games. Like, I mean,
yes, but I don't really care about the world. I just care about the horseback riding simulator aspect.
Well, you need something that really gets the galloping.
That's true. Yes.
All right, we're getting a bit too much into the horses now. But
no, that's okay. I had an interesting upbringing. I wanted to ask though, precog, IEMs for gaming. Is this a thing that do you play games, or what's your?
I'm going to be blunt. I don't game at all, basically. Okay. So you guys might as well be speaking another language here, but yeah.
If you had to consider IEMs for like soundstage though, and like imaging and that kind of stuff and separation, what would be like your top pick?
I mean, I tried with the LCD-I4 just to like some mobile games, and the imaging on it is incredible. The thing is though, once you hook up that Bluetooth adapter, there's sort of that desync, like that split second desync, and it just throws everything off. But I mean, if we're talking about like on a mobile setup, I would go for like the LCD-I4 or something like that.
Interesting. I hadn't thought of that one because I was thinking of like for soundstage stuff, there's a lot of flagships out there that actually have really good soundstage, like surprisingly good soundstage for IEMs.
That's true. Yeah.
I'd almost say Unique Melody Best.
More like limitations with mobile games too. Like I don't think the sound cues are like probably as precise as they would be on a console or PC even.
Yeah. But I think also like there are people who they're just playing on their PC and they're using IEMs instead of headphones because they prefer to use IEMs.
Actually, I do have a friend who's actually very, very competitive. He probably spends, 20 hours of his day playing Valorant. And he was asking me if I knew anything about in-ears because he hates over-ear headphones. Yeah. And I was like, well, I don't know anything about that. But that does exist. There's people who find them much, much, much more comfortable than the over-ear stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, and even in the, I know this is true for the competitive SC2 scene, sort of the only real competitive stuff that I was into. at least recently, people in tournaments would always have everybody was always into IEMs in that scene, because when you went to tournaments, you had to have noise canceling headphones on anyways. So
for isolation.
Because you wouldn't, otherwise you'd hear what the broadcasters were saying.
Yeah, that's another good point.
So so everybody had IEMs going on underneath, and then they'd have
gun range muffs.
Yeah, exactly. But they still wanted to have good quality sound, right? So they were all into
as far as like that's a very specific setting though. That's like a LAN party or esports setting. And that's where
yes.
Well, why would I personally pick? I would go with something like the DT1770, because that has very good isolation. The DT770, not as much. Or that that'd be interesting to try out. The I think it's Tiger 300 or something from
Tiger 300 is something I'd be curious about. Yeah,
for gaming.
DMS says it's really good, so I'm curious. We should probably get into that though. Like, let's go for different price brackets and for the different like for each person's like what they think would be good for all three different categories of of gaming. Well, at least the first two, because I mean. The third one's just like, what are good headphones?
Yeah, what are just
good? I'll get one very easy one out of the way. Okay. For first-person shooters,
under $100. What's under $100 for FPS? The best gaming headphones.
Dang, that's tough, man.
Wait, how much is the PC 38X?
That's like the I know the 37X is like 119 or 109.
Okay, so a little more expensive than that.
Changes every now and then.
Okay.
Under 100. There's it's a pretty generic design. I think most companies have now made like I know Fnatic made a version of it, I think, but like the HyperX one, I don't know if it's the Revolver. No, I can't remember what it's called, but one of the HyperX ones, I would go with one of those.
What about the SHP 9600 or 9500? Because I think you could find those for like $60.
I mean, I think that for general gaming they're fine, but for shooters, if you're dead set on being competitive and listening out for footsteps and gun reloads and whatnot, I'd say not precise enough.
Okay.
So there's another thing, right? Because different games will require different things. So if I think shooters, I'd actually prioritize imaging over soundstage.
Yeah, it doesn't matter as much how spacious it is. It's more how
quickly locate. Yeah, you want to be able to quickly locate. I was mentioning that yesterday too, a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so your recommendation for under $100 is to just save up more and get the PC 38X.
Actually, no. I'd actually go to save a bit more. Go to the DT990 Pro, which is, I think I've seen it on Amazon as low as a 125. So
right, and that's also in part because you get extra treble pierces that
stabbies
will definitely alert you to anything going on. There's no missing that.
For sure.
Just bring a napkin so you can wipe the blood off the
or use EQ and you won't have issues. Well,
but then you lose the whole point of the extra little stabbiness.
Well, there's the other thing, right?
Why buy knives to cut your ears off and then dull the knives?
Yeah, exactly. What's the
Well, they're
silly.
I would say like footsteps are in the upper registers. The main,
typically
the most prominent cue.
Yeah. It's funny because we were talking about that in a stream we did a long time ago, and someone was saying that the footsteps are like at 300 hertz or something. I was like, no.
I think they said something like 120, which would they were doing a whoop whoop. That's what you would.
Yeah. I was thinking about that because I'm doing a project on for an upcoming video on the relationship between fundamental and harmonic, which is a very deep subject. And I mean, so for anyone who's unaware, music is ultimately just math, like music and sound waves and that kind of stuff, like musical instruments that you can analyze it just by using math. But there is a question of where the fundamental tone would be, where the fundamental is for a naturally occurring footstep in the world. And there might be something to a naturally occurring footstep in the world being somewhere around 120 hertz. But the problem is, in almost every game situation, the recordings of those that get played are not at 120. There's no way that's at 120.
Well, the thing is, you have to consider that not only are things being recorded, after they're recorded, they're EQ'd anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, if you listen to a lot of tracks, you'll find that vocals tend to be boosted in the highs, and they actually decrease their fundamental tones so that they don't interfere with other instruments. So usually what you're hearing is just the treble of the vocals anyways.
Well, then with the footsteps, even with the last Call of Duty, for multiplayer, do you remember the footsteps, how they boosted the shite out of those when it first came out?
Yeah, well, also actually in Black Ops Cold War, the new one, they didn't boost the footsteps. What they did was something horrible, which is that they added a ton of bass, a ton of sub bass. So
it got mudded up.
Yeah, so they're really prominent, but at the same time, it's really indistinct because. And that's another thing. When you have bassy headphones, I find that imaging tends to feel less precise because you have so much more of that bass.
That was the cascades. The cascades from me yesterday were that, dude. Because I haven't listened to those in a while, and like I felt it yesterday. I was like, whoa! Like these are like, especially for gaming, like they're great for like the Switch gaming because it's never like competitive or it's never like that. It's more of like I play mostly side scrolling, and so it works for that stuff. But in like a big 3D world where there's a lot of bass and it was just like a muddy mess, and I was like, oh.
Okay. Somebody DT 1990 Pro is good for gaming. Yeah, it's great for gaming, but I don't see that it performs. If you only care about gaming, then I don't think that it performs particularly better than the 990 Pro.
Right.
So it's not. I don't think it's worth quintuple the price, just for gaming, of course.
Yeah. The Cost Porter Pros and the KSC 75s with Yaxi pads.
That was cream.
No, and I did that. I did that in my thing yesterday. I actually wore the Porter Pros, and shockingly, how close they came to these. Like shockingly close.
Is that the 38X?
Yeah, this is the 38X, and so it was great. Well, and the other thing I found with specifically in audio. And this kind of blew me away a little bit, and I was curious about this. That's why I kind of did it. Was I have? Let me take the little cable off. Is I have on loan as well. Oh, this is a weird one. It has a little twist. There. Is these, and so I don't know if you can.
Oh, is that 560S?
Yeah, this is the 560S, and you can even see like they're pretty close, even in like the way they look.
But what's the soundstage difference between those two?
I would say these are wider, but it could be because the pads I have are the
so that's the 38X is wider.
This 38X is a little bit wider, but the pads on here are these. It's like a not spandex, but it's that polyester, like super slick, like smooth feeling pads.
Okay.
And these ones have the classic velour pads, but that could have been part of the reason why. But they almost, for music, sounded almost identical. These are a little bit bassier, warmer, but not a lot. But everything else is pretty close.
Right. Okay, so we've done the under $100 category.
What did we say? I think
we said save a little bit more and buy a DT9
or KSC 75 with the Axie pads.
Yeah, or Porter Pros, but KSC 75 has a little bit better bright imaging, I believe. It's a little bit brighter, a little bit better driver in it.
And if you have to go with the closeback, what would your pick be?
For under 100?
990 is like semi open, right?
Yeah. No, it's full open.
Fully open? Okay. Yeah. What's
DT 770? Really good sounds. Yeah, really good sound stage.
I mean, we're basically talking under $200. If you're only going to spend $100, don't buy a headphone.
Yeah, if you're going, or get IEMs, get cheap IEMs that would be like a KSC or like our car. It's not KSC, KZ or something like that. Precog would probably give me a for something.
I mean, don't sleep on some of like the gaming headsets. I mean, they have a lot of like the Takstar Pro sort of modified versions for gaming, like the ones that HyperX makes, or the one that now I think Fnatic makes.
My buddy's a huge HyperX fan of it, by the way.
And they also have the built-in mic, which you got to consider as part of the budget, right?
Yeah.
Especially for console.
So what we're saying was under $100 headsets are fine. Because you can and
actually a lot more viable than the audiophile headphones, because you need an amp for a lot of these.
And that's
even the 80 ohm biodynamic stuff. I mean,
that would benefit from that.
You don't get much volume out of those anyways.
And that's what my next thing I was kind of found with kind of going back and forth between all these was that like the power factor is big. especially if you're going into a console world or that kind of thing. Like if you don't have a little amp or the controller, you're plugging into a controller, then it's not going to be the greatest.
The one thing with that though is that these days a lot of PC motherboards have a headphone amplifier as an output, because it's so cheap to just throw some op amps on there and like have a proper sound output now. Like I even see motherboards with ESS DACs on them. So it's I saw a monitor with an ESS DAC. So yeah, it's definitely part of the gaming world in a way.
And I was going to actually talk about that too. Someone mentioned it's like the next step up for closed back. I would actually recommend, someone said the Steel series, and it's similar to like the design of the Mobius. Those are really good for closed back.
Steel series.
Yeah, I think the Steel series Arctis. And they look kind of like
I might get one of those in for review actually, because I think they're pretty popular.
I think we shared. It got shared. I think Chrono, you shared it. Did you share it?
Yeah, I think that they're like
they won like. There's the one you said, Audiophile, the best audiophile.
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting that they chose specifically that line from IGN's article for their for their advertising, which is interesting. So I guess they're probably aware that there's some sort of crossover happening now between those two markets. So they're trying to draw the attention. I used the Arctis for a long time, the Arctis 7. I don't know about the new one. I think it's called Arctis 7B or something like that. Whatever it was that I shared earlier. Really, really close soundstage. Imaging is all right, but I mean, if I'm being honest, in almost any price range, I don't think any other headphone that I've tried comes as close to the imaging precision of the HD100 as some of the stuff from Biodynamic. So that's usually what Bayer would like. Maybe they're not my favorite for music, but like I instantly recommend them for gaming because they're just really, at least for FPS games, they're really, really good.
Okay. Got a question here for Precog. What about IEMs? They don't really need amps. Also better imaging for better price. I'd say it depends on the IEM, but what's your take if you were to say like under $150 for IEMs for imaging?
And I think you could go with any IEM under 150 just because imaging is something that is really not present in most cheaper IEMs at all.
Yeah, like not compared to like, once you get to the $300 plus range.
Yeah, once you get into the $300 plus range, that's when I would go for the Blessing 2. That has at least above average imaging.
Yeah.
But pretty much everything under that is just falls within the realm of average. They're all pretty much three belong, Like,
it's funny though, like I would not recommend the Moondrop dynamic driver IEMs for imaging.
No, not at all.
That's like the main thing that they don't do well.
Yeah.
And then there's the impedance issue. Because depending on the controller you plug into, it could have a.
That's right.
Because I've tried Andromedas with my Xbox controller, and then I've tried it with different things, and like. Yeah, it changes drastically depending on which thing I'm
does
using.
It affect your gaming performance specifically?
With Andromedas, with the Andromedas, it was more like it just got more bassy, which you don't necessarily always want, or like.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That
makes sense.
It'd be super low output impedance then, for what you're plugging into.
Yeah.
Which in other situations would be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I'm playing on the Switch, it was fine. But usually, even then, I'd throw on an IE match just because it made it more enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean. Okay, so we've done... and our closed back recommendation was either IEMs or...
Save up and get something better.
Steel series, right? The Arctis.
No, the DT770 as well.
DT770, but that's under 150.
I'd say that for soundstage is like 90% as good as the 990, which is really, really good.
That's always my go-to recommendation for people like under $200. What's like a closed back headphone, and I always recommend the DT770. I think it'll probably be the K371.
I was going to ask about that.
But the K371's not the best for soundstage, I don't think.
That's why I'm specifically recommending the 770 because it's you wouldn't realize that it's a closed back with the kind of soundstage and imaging it has. It's just that precise. I mean, soundstage is almost as wide as like a 990, and imaging. I'm serious. I used it for a long time. It's just about as precise as the HD800, which is
and
quite a bold claim.
And these are all going to be leveling up from the standard headsets that market
there's just the caveat that you need
an amplifier,
you need a discrete microphone, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so under $250. Well, let's just say under $300.
Oh man,
That's easy.
Okay.
Actually, honestly,
I mean,
man,
I think that now it does
Like,
warrant like what kind of game are we talking about?
Well,
Like-
like I want to go through each. So for your specific purposes, Chrono, for competitive stuff,
The buyer stuff.
still the buyers. Okay.
Yeah. So actually, somebody asked in chat. So buyer dynamic good for gaming? Yeah, I think I'm biased towards them for gaming.
I'm inclined to agree for competitive stuff.
Yeah.
Tyler, under 300.
Yeah, that's easy. It's this one. I mean, the PC38X or 3X set 37X. Honestly, like, 'cause it's comfortable. It has the mic, so you can quickly, if you don't have a mic on a PC or if you're on a console, it's great.
Yeah.
Also worth noting that it has
comfort.
a really good mic.
And it has
The
really
mic
good
is-
mic. The Sennheiser mics
it's
are
actually really good.
fantastic. And then the other really kicker here is it has the volume control, which
Mhm.
that is, dude, that is awesome to have. Like, quickly being able to just, instead of going into the console and go to the volume thing and, you know.
It has very good gaming features. Also
Mhm.
worth noting that under $300, you actually have enough budget to pair it with the GSX 1000, which
Yep.
gives it that really good surround.
You
sound.
get an extra
Cool.
bit of money
Yeah.
saved up with that.
And
That's probably
I
a good
definitely picked that way over the A40 sound system
Mhm.
from Astro.
Now, if you
A40s are
again
muddy.
Oh, around $300, there's a couple things I wanted to bring up. The first is one of my picks would actually be the HE400i from Hi-Fi Man, or one of those variants.
Mhm.
But again, that's my purposes being not necessarily, caring too much about the immersion, but those do actually have a fairly spacious presentation.
Mhm.
Not the most spacious, but like they're decent. And then for music listening and comfort, that's the other thing, is that they're also kind of lightweight. So that would be on my list for under $300. But I also wanted to bring up that $300 is close and pretty darn close in price to the not the Mobius, but the it's the other one that's the Mobius. HyperX's version of the Mobius.
Oh, yeah.
Orbit.
Orbit, yeah.
Orbit,
Yeah. So I think the Mobius is $400.
Yeah, it's
Something
more
like that.
it's more expensive. Then the Penrose
And-
is coming out too. I think,
And then there's
right?
the Penrose, and there's so all of those are within that range. And I wanted to
And-
get your guys' take on, like, for the different applications. And actually, just before we go further, I want to say for Precog, is your $300 price range pick the Blessing 2 still?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Chrono, what's your thoughts on, like, the Mobius, the Orbit, the Penrose, all of those, if you've had a chance to hear any of them?
Actually, I have not.
Okay.
So I can't really comment on them for
Okay.
my experience in gaming or anything like that.
I have some thoughts, but I'll let Tyler go first, because I know he's heard the Mobius. He has it there.
Yeah, as far as like I honestly haven't used this in so long. Like, because we talked about this before. Like, well, I say the barrier of entrance or whatever. But as far as gaming features, this thing is so packed full of them. Like, it has a mute button up top. It has the cables that it comes with. It has you can see right here, it has a little connector for adding a mic. It's DSP.
I should just say that I mean, this is something that Sankar mentioned as well. But, like, if you're using this as a gaming headphone, it's wired with USB. It's a wireless headphone, but
Only
for
with
gaming
USB.
wired. Yeah, with
Yes.
USB.
And that was the big issue for me. It's like, I didn't even use these for PC or console, because the other factor is if it's not charged, you can't use it, even if it's plugged in.
That's why the wireless no latency thing
Uh-huh.
is why the Penrose is a thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So-
And so that was another big factor. But actually, I have on these, you can kind of see that blue writing. I have the after, or the secondary pads that are the cooling gel. Oh,
Yeah.
dude, that's if you're gonna get these, definitely splurge and get the cooling gel pads, because it's fantastic. But gaming wise, these are fantastic in big open world games. It was really cool, like walking around the world and hearing,
so
like,
those and the Orbit S and the
Mhm.
Penrose as well.
yeah, and then the head tracking is what really kicked these off too, as an extra bit. That's what you're paying for. It has that head tracking, which is really cool. Within
The Orbit doesn't have the head tracking, I don't think.
Yeah,
I'm
Yeah,
not
that'd
sure.
probably
if
be
the
really
Penrose
fun.
does.
Like the immersive
Mhm.
games. Something like what was the game called? The Last Jedi or something?
Last Jedi would be really good. So that was the thing. Like,
Yeah.
I'd be walking, and I'd be like in like Assassin's Creed game or something, and I like turn my head and like there'd be like a torch on the wall and it would stay. Even if I'd like turn to go talk, like so my wife came in or something like that, or my daughter, I'd turn and it would stay right here, but I'm over here. Like the sound would is cool.
It simulates it simulates like if you're sitting on your couch and you have your speakers in front of you,
full surround sound. Yeah.
Here's my question for you guys: why would you want that? like for if you're thinking about like the immersion factor, imagine you're in like a FPS situation or first person situation. Why would you want the sound to stay when you turn your head?
So actually, I have an answer for this to some level. For me, I don't know if Chrono would like this, but for me, when I was playing like a first-person shooter game like Destiny or something like that, or Call of Duty, the cool thing was because I have a big ultra-wide screen, and I sit a little maybe too close to it, but so I'd turn my head to kind of, just a little bit, and then it would still, but it allow me to know that on the screen that the shots are coming from over here, rather than turning my head and then now they're coming from over. You know what I mean? Like it kept it more accurate in the game world rather than in where I'm looking on the screen.
See, to me, it almost makes sense. To me, it's like the opposite of surround sound. It's like simulating front sound only, in a way, and which makes a certain amount of sense for watching movies. If you're sitting on your couch, makes a ton of sense for watching movies because that's where the screen is.
Yeah, when I first got these, I had my monitors, speakers. Yeah. And I would listen to music with these on occasion just because I was lazy and I didn't want to switch out my headphones after gaming or whatever. And I'd be listening late at night, and all of a sudden I'd freak out and be like, oh crap, my wife's gonna come running in and get pissed at me because I have my speakers on super loud, but it was just in here because I had it. So when I switched to music, it would switch to the 2.1 setup. So there's like 7 different setups, and I actually thought that my speakers were on because it was coming at me with that 3D effect. So.
Yeah, so but to me it's like I don't know if there's a competitive situation where I would want that. Or honestly, even for immersion in a situation where I'm just again thinking of my horseback riding.
It's really cool it's really cool when you're using it with like a VR. It's also really cool.
Oh, maybe for VR, I could see that.
VR is really fun, and then if you can get it around the head,
see, okay, here's the thing, right?
Don't VR games already have like built-in like head tracking usually?
But that's why it might work better.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be a little, because like when you turn your head in VR, I used to have an Oculus, like one of the old ones, the Oculus Rift. It was like the second generation or whatever. I would turn my head, and the sound would stay, but the positioning would change according with my head movement. So it already had like built in. Wouldn't it then trip up the headphone? If everything doubling up. You have two axes of like head tracking basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and then I will say this: like, most of the time, if even that, like, it is kind of a gimmick that full surround sound. It's literally like you're sitting, like Andrew said, in a 7.1 surround sound room, and you're in the center in you're in the perfect spot in that room to listen to music or games. But I will say that I much prefer the stereo for gaming, if that makes sense, like a proper stereo headphone, because most of the time the games have built-in surround sound.
Actually, that's the interesting thing about the Mobius as well, is that when you turn off the 3D effect, because you know how it's got 3D effects, there's like off, there's on, and then there's auto. And if you have it on or auto, your soundstage is way bigger.
Yeah.
But if you have off,
it goes.
The soundstage is completely narrow. It's like
it reminds me of the LCD GX. LCD,
yeah, like that too. Like the soundstage is just not like. It's not something that I would want for competitive situations or even immersive situations. So the Mobius, it's interesting because I know it's designed to be a multimedia thing, right? And I think it's effective as a multimedia thing, but many of its features are more for movies and stuff like that. Yeah. Whereas, and honestly, it's really good for music.
Like for music and like concerts and music. Oh yeah,
really and I was surprised. That's what I thought. Well, this is like if this wasn't marketed as a gaming
headphone. Kind of a theme they have.
Same with that. Same with the GX. If it wasn't marketed as a gaming headphone, it would be really popular within the audiophile world because it does. I mean, the frequency response in the Mobius is fantastic. The GX is great too. So, I don't. and it doesn't have the soundstage stuff naturally occurring, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Mobius has it when you hit the 3D button, right? But
the
still,
staging on the GX is horrible. Like the soundstage. Yeah.
is it? Oh, I didn't actually mind.
No, I think that the soundstage is a little forward, but the imaging itself
GX?
is very good. And
The imaging is good. Yeah. The imaging is really
and I'd
good.
say that the GX is. I think I wouldn't use it for shooters because it's too warm. I'd say that it's better for immersive games, especially because it has that really deep bass. I feel like that helps with immersion usually because you feel the roll and rumble and whatnot. But
okay, so with that in mind, let's go up to $1,000. If you're gonna get a good high-end headphone, and you're thinking to yourself, I want this for games.
The best of all worlds.
But that's more than $1,000.
Well, plus that 800. His is definitely.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, so Chrono, if you can't have the HD 800S, and you can say you have a budget of $1,000 for gaming headphone, what do you get?
I have not listened to the Bayer T1. I've listened to the T5P. Not the best imaging. Precise enough. I'm trying to think of the closed backs because a lot of the time I find myself actually listening to music while I play anyways, and I don't want people on Discord to realize I'm ignoring them by listening to music. So I go with the closed back.
That's you're playing hard mode.
Yeah. Dang.
Under $1,000 is tricky.
That's a tough one, yeah.
Well, okay. Here's the thing as well. With under $1,000, there's the question about dynamic driver versus planar, and I want to say like typically I find that dynamic drivers have better imaging.
Oh yeah, no, I was actually gonna say that none of the planars that I've used, I've liked a lot in gaming.
See, my exception to that is the Ananda, because I think the Ananda does have a decent sense of space.
For me, in Modern Warfare was a little confusing, and so was the Sindara. And so
actually, you mentioned though that even the 650 is okay because a lot of it depends on what you end up being used to, in spite of the fact that the 650 isn't the most, the best for soundstage.
The thing is, it has those gaps of like front.
Yeah, that's what I can't.
Right. That's why I would like any HD58. Okay, I'll say this right away. HD58X, HD600, HD650, HD660S. Actually, the HD660S is a little better, I find, for imaging, but the other three I would not use for like shooter games. And I know that those are very popular, so I'm sorry if I out there, but I know those are very popular for games, but I would not use any of those.
I mean, you could say the DT1990 Pro because that is under $1,000 and it does.
But I choose the DT1770 because it's closed back.
But what about the
I know that personally, I would go with a closed back headphone for gaming.
Yeah.
Mostly.
I would too if I had the opportunity.
I mean, I have my microphone like right here, right when I'm gaming.
Yeah.
And I don't want my noise or whatever. Even sometimes like my friends are being loud, which they are obnoxious. It'll sometimes feed back into the microphone if I'm wearing something like this. So I wouldn't want to do that.
Wouldn't that feed back their obnoxiousness so they realize they're being obnoxious and then they stop?
Oh no, they just get louder. They start.
Oh no.
Yeah, no, they're great. Especially when we're playing CS:GO. Oh man.
Yeah, I can't. That's why I stopped. I used to be in CS:GO and I can't anymore because it's just this. It's the children and the squabbling and the vitriol. It's just too much. I realized I'm a fully grown man getting shouted at by 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
HD100 over HD100S for gaming, they're identical. So
there's slight differences, but yeah, you're more.
But I'd say the imaging
for gaming, they're pretty much on par. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could probably find a used HD800 for less than $1,000.
Yeah, you can get them for usually. Well, they actually gone up recently. I noticed that they actually went as low as like $600 like a couple months back, and all of a sudden they're all back up to like $900 to $1,000 now.
HD100 just kills the imaging. I'd have to disagree.
Yeah,
I also have to disagree.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're at the like. Okay.
Well, wait. I said DT1770. So what do you guys would choose?
Wait, no, but why did you say 1770 over 770?
Better noise attenuation.
Oh, okay.
It seals better. Like I don't know why. I don't know if it's just like the shape of my head or jaw or whatever, but I always feel like I have a gap here for it's easier to see with the 770.
Yeah. I actually have a very controversial open back that I think is probably one of the best gaming headphones you can get. specifically for gaming, I wouldn't necessarily think it's the best for music, but for gaming, is the HD 700. That thing is awesome for gaming.
It's really good. That's probably like
I want to buy another one because I miss it so much.
It's probably very close to like the HD 100 in terms of soundstage and.
Well, I'm sure you could just EQ it for music if you want to.
It has and it's a little bit weirder than the HD 800 with some of the music stuff, but it's But for gaming, even the bass on that is really good for open back. Like it's got that dynamic bass you can get in there. It's not like super bassy, but it's got that punch. It was just a really fun headphone, and I kind of regret selling it.
My choice for under $1,000 is for gaming would be probably the Aurora Audio Borealis, because I think it's around 900 ish, and it's basically like a step up from the LX. Like you get kind of like the LX level detail, but then you get a better soundstage. It's a better presentation, like for space. Maybe a little bit awkward as far as the build and stuff. That's sort of the biggest criticism, but I don't
They
care
just
about
came out
that.
with the new pilot pad. Thing
to do that.
But
yeah, so it would probably be that one. I haven't heard the close back. I'd be interested to hear how well that one does for soundstage and stuff like that, like imaging, soundstage, separation. That was the other thing that I want to mention. That for image separation and distinction that you get with the planar, while you might not get as good even distribution of imaging, stuff like that with many planars, the separation qualities I find do translate in a certain way. Well, at least for CSGO, I don't know about other competitive stuff, but for that reason, I actually think that some planars could be okay. And so for my under $1,000 pick, it would either be the Aurora Audio Borealis or probably the Odyssey LCD2, even though it's not the most spacious. LCD2F and EQ'd, of course. But even though it's not the most spacious, I don't know. It was just, even when I had it here like a while ago, I found that the separation quality led to both a better sense of. I mean, again, I'm not really playing games, but the few times that I have. I found it actually worked out pretty good, and I was surprised that it worked out pretty good, because I typically find planars to be not as good as dynamics in terms of image distribution. Precog under $1,000 IEMs.
Well, obviously I'm not sure how all of this is going to exactly translate to actual gaming, but I'm just to list off a couple IEMs that have good imaging at that price point. It would probably be the Sony IER M9 and the Andromeda 2020. I think the Android 2020 layers a little better, but the M9 has more of that like holographic quality where it feels like the sort of the stage is sort of shaped around you. But you also have to consider the impedance issues with the Android 2020 if you're going to go with that. That's not a concern with the M9 because it's actually fairly hard to drive for a balanced temperature IEM.
Yeah, I think for me, other IEM picks in that range would be like the Theaudio Monarch.
Oh yeah, how's the imaging on that? Like
pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, so like slightly better than average stage, good imaging, but also really good image separation, right? So that's kind of, I think that's in part. There's probably more to it than this, but I think it's also in part because of the tuning that it has, really good image separation, because that lower mid-range section is kind of scooped out a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So that means that any of the tones that would token those frequencies don't intrude on like the rest of the clarity there.
Yeah, that's true.
I think I often find that's kind of one of the things that can help with that.
Someone's saying, I was going to say one of the Fearless line. The thing about the Fearless lineup is that the imaging, I think that the staging on them is actually on the smaller side of things, even if they do image adequately. But yeah, I don't think I would really recommend the Fearless stuff if you're going to be gaming. There's a lot of other IEMs at lower price points that sort of meet the bar for that.
Yeah. I was actually going to say, just on the subject of IEMs, it's a bit more expensive, but not much more expensive. And I know you hate it, but the Campfire Aura has a surprisingly good soundstage. It's faked.
It is totally
don't get me wrong.
It's got that fat tip in the upper mid range.
Yeah, but it's definitely a spacious sounding IEM.
Yeah, that's true. I can agree with that.
But yeah, okay, so we've done the $1,000 mark. and I'm now second guessing myself because there are a ton of other headphones out there under $1,000.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
But I'm gonna stick with it. The Roros Audio Borealis. And okay, so let's say under $2,000. Let's just do that. And I know what everybody's answers. I know what everybody's answers should be.
Yeah.
let's go with Chrono first.
The HC100S. I mean, it's the McLaren P1 of gaming. It doesn't get better than that. I mean, at least for FPS games where you don't care about bass, you don't care about like immersive sort of whatever, right? It's just.
But it's good for immersion too, though.
I mean, you have the white soundstage and whatnot.
I wanted to ask you about the differences between the HD800S and the Aria, because I have my own opinions about this, but I want to get yours for like specifically the competitive side of things, because the Aria does have that sort of depth kind of layering capability.
I think the Aria has a slightly better depth, but the soundstage for me is a little bit more open and a little wider on the HD100S. And more importantly for me, I feel like it has a much better image distribution, particularly when it comes to the center image. I feel like it's a lot more precise and it's quite a bit smoother. Like when you're just, if you spin in circles and you listen out to one sound, then you can more precisely tell what that is.
You can nail the 360 no scope.
Yeah. Trust me, I did some testing before this live stream, and I was just doing 360s and just stuff like that. Okay, I wasn't.
You gotta do that with your VR headset, and then
It's like disaster, nausea after.
Yeah. Okay, so Tyler, what's your under $2,000 pick?
Under $2,000 would also be the HD800. I have the older model and I have it with the SDR mod, and then I also put a pilot pad on it, and then I have Dakoni hybrids on it for extra comfort, and it gives a little bit wider stage with that too, because it pulls it further from your ears.
And that's the other thing with the HD800S. HD800S is also my pick for all things like gaming, for all the reasons you guys mentioned, but comfort as well, because the thing it's so light and it just disappears. The one thing though, one downside with all these really open back headphones is that for the competitive aspects, if you have a headphone that's really open, you could potentially get distracted by room noises or whatever else that's going on, in outside. And if you have a closed back headphone, they don't have as wide of a stage, they're not as open sounding and whatever, but typically at least. But they do eliminate the rest of that stuff, so that all you're really getting is the stuff that's going on.
Yeah, but if you're a gamer, you're antisocial and nobody's bothering you, you sealed yourself off.
Yes, but what if you're living in an apartment in the city and there's just like city sounds around you, right? That you can kind of hear a little bit, right?
Call the cops on your neighbors because they're lowering your KD or something.
When you get when your roommate gets swatted.
Actually, well, one of my first years in college, I actually only used open back headphones while gaming. So my roommate ended up getting closed back, so he didn't have to hear my stuff. So it's the other people around who ended up adjusting. No, of course you wouldn't want that to normally happen, but that's what I'm saying. I think and if we go up to the $3,000 bracket, I'd go with the HC820 because it is a closed back, very good. It has good sound isolation. I wouldn't say it's as good as the Verite closed for isolation, but very good isolation. It still has that incredible soundstage and imaging, right?
See, for me, I go Stelia at $3,000.
But at least for me, it's a little forward.
Oh, it's not the most open it's not the most spacious sounding headphone, but the detail is definitely there. I'd EQ down the bass bump there, but still, like the detail from the Stelia is like, detail is in like that might actually be, yield competitive advantage. But I can see why you choose the HD820 because, as you say, it gets a lot of that stage aspect. What
I'd say the Verite closed would beat the Stelia and the HD820 for gaming for me.
Oh yeah, that's under 3,000 as well. Sorry.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
I like the Verite closed, but maybe it's because of the latest Call of Duty where they added a ton of bass. Where I'm like, I don't want bass. I don't want any bass at all.
The HD820 has a ton of bass.
Yeah,
it's
punchy, but it's not.
It doesn't feel quite as. It doesn't feel.
Because 300 hertz is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's true.
And if 300 hertz is gone, it's probably gonna. Yeah, I can see why, right? Like, it's not gonna intrude on the rest of it.
And the Verite closed, they are bassy, but they're not as bassy as like, say, I don't know. To me, they still have that V shape to some level, right?
They
Like
have a
elevated
base shelf.
Yeah.
I mean, but no, I wouldn't say that like they're overly boosted in bass or anything like that. Is that because of the game I play, I know is boosted in the bass. I would want something with more treble rather than the bass. You know
right?
what I mean?
Because what you're specifically
because I know that my specific game has a ton of
Yeah.
bass, then I would want something like this, which has dead bass, right?
Yeah,
Or no bass.
I'm tracking. So yeah, for whatever reason, I was thinking like the Verite close would be like money no object for gaming, and I realized we're talking about $3,000 headphones.
I mean, there are. I mean, there's gamers. I mean, there's we have to consider it's. We think it's crazy, but I mean, a lot of people do spend a lot of money on their gaming equipment.
Well, yeah, you bought one. I mean, wait.
From keyboard. I didn't buy this for gaming, man. But actually, fun fact. I think since Black Ops 4, I've played with my game audio completely muted. I don't think I've heard games in a while. I just listen to music anyway. So
yeah.
But only for testing purposes have I listened to the game audio, obviously. But
yeah.
I mean, what were you talking about?
Oh, close back Verite closed versus the HD at 20.
What about the Radiance?
Oh yeah, that one I actually like that one for gaming.
Yeah, I like that one a lot
because the image distribution is pretty good.
It's very on all the focal ones.
Yeah,
on the Stelia as well. But I find that the
staging is so.
I felt like it had like the upper registers were better represented on the Radiance. I felt it was a little bit less bassy, so I felt like it was a little easier to track certain key sounds.
Well, it doesn't have the upper bass bump as significantly as the Stelia does. Mm-hmm. But it it's got a bigger lower or sub bass bump on the Radiance. At least that's what I measured. I don't know. I need to get the Stelia in again. But for me, like the Stelia was like upper bass elevated, whereas that Radiance was like lower bass elevated.
Yeah. So under $2,000, if it was a closed back, it would be the Radiance.
See, for me, I would probably go with one of the ZMFs still under 2,000 for a closed back, like Icon Atticus or Atticus maybe, or I think something else that's a closed back under $2,000. What do you think about the Ether? Did you try the Ether close?
No, it was the Ether Flow 1.1.
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't know if I would do that one either because the comfort, while decent, I found it to be a little clampy on my big old noggin. So I don't. I don't know. Under $2,000, I would go with that. And probably a ZMF closed back. Yeah, that'd be my pick.
Same as Elysia. I found them to be so different. Maybe I'm tripping,
sure.
But I found them to be so different.
I agree.
And the technology seems to be the same. If you look at it's aluminum magnesium, yes, but the actual driver size and depth is actually closer to that of the Elysia than it is to the Clear.
So actually, it isn't the same exact implementation because
they have different ports. They have different,
Well, but then also, when I was doing all the pad swaps on the Radiance, and comparing that to pad swaps in the Elysia, if you pad swap in the Elysia, you lose all of the bass. So all the bass tuning for the Elysia is done with the pads. And then if you pad swap on the Radiance, you still get the bass shelf. Mm-hmm. So that means that the tuning for the Radiance is more than just in the pads. And it has something to do with, the driver implementation itself, which that's why in the video I did on the Radiance, I said that like it's definitely got a better, not just in terms of like overall tonal balance, but what they're able to do with the bass is just better on the Radiance.
I think we should get I think we've been going about the different prices, but let's see, for those in chat who are interested in gaming and high-end headphones and whatnot, or just headphones in general, what games are you playing?
That's a good question.
Just so we get an idea of, maybe you're interested in a specific game and maybe we can talk about that if we played that game and had some sort of experiences. So what games are you guys playing?
Yeah, and then while they're talking about that, I wanted to kind of touch on some of the topics they were saying. Something I picked up on too yesterday, and also just in general, is when I'm gaming on console or PC and that kind of stuff, as long as the headphones have decent imaging and in detail, like it doesn't have to be great. Like I'm usually fine with it because like we all already discussed, like most of the time for pure gaming, like it's not that important outside of those factors. Like imaging and detail. Like the stage is important, but not as much as getting a proper image.
For me, I have to agree. For me, imaging, detail, honestly, and separation for me is not that amazing or significant, but in my personal experience, it's always been imaging. It's like it could be a forward soundstage, but as long as the imaging is pinpoint accurate, and that's fantastic for gaming, I think.
And this is why I typically think dynamic drivers are better than planars at
single player
for imaging.
Single player for single player, just having a good time. The LCD GX is really good. Just as a heads up, I found that really good.
We're getting some games. Last of Us 2, Far Cry, casual single player, Metro Exodus,
Valorant.
Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima is fantastic.
GTA, Red Dead Redemption 2, Ghost of Tsushima.
Ghost of Tsushima is fantastic. I love that game.
Warzone, Battlefield, Cyberpunk soon. Yes,
yeah, Cyberpunk.
Everybody is going to be on Cyberpunk.
Pre-ordered.
Yeah, I actually almost wanted to get that Cyberpunk 2077 Razer edition mouse. It was it's like this yellow Razer Viper. Yeah, it looks so nice. What? Don't knock it till you see it.
No, I'm only knocking the Razer Viper. I actually had one, and it was the mushiest feeling, grossest feeling.
Oh yeah, no, I ended up swapping over to the what is this? The Death Adder.
Oh yeah, Death Adder is way better.
Death Adder V2 Pro, and they added their new optical switches, which are mushy compared to.
Oh really?
Yeah, because this is the wireless version.
Oh okay.
Yeah, so it's like the Viper.
I'm still rocking the wireless or G Pro wireless, and there's someone linked me. They're making a new one of this as well.
Yeah, there's a super light model it just got in stock today.
Yeah, this is already pretty light. My only wish is I wish they had an ergonomic version of that, but because everything else is fantastic on it. But I had a G Pro wireless that died, went to the Viper because everyone was like, it's the latest and greatest, and it was the grossest feeling mouse ever. So I immediately returned it, just bought another one of these.
We're getting a lot of actually single player open world games in chat.
Hades is amazing. That's the game that I've actually played other than Horseback Riding Simulator. Civ 6. This is my kind of stuff here.
I think you know what, for if it was for the more immersive stuff, like open world stuff, I think I would have chosen the Aria over the HD100S because it has that depth, right? Mm-hmm. And it has the bass. It has a lot more rumble. So
yeah,
I think I would have gone with something like that. And then in the lower price points, I wouldn't have gone Bayer. I'm trying to think of what would be similar. Not quite the Sindara.
You can't really get these, but these are really good for the single player stuff too. Even multiplayer, they're pretty decent as well. I think these these are the vocal erupts. We can.
Oh yeah.
And so these ones actually have a beryllium driver in them, so they're fast. But yeah,
I know nothing about that headphone.
Actually,
I know there was a controversy, but that's all I know.
I have Aeolus pads on them too, so I actually swapped out to the Aeolus pads.
So they sound totally different from
actually then for gaming, I would go with the ZMF Verite closed. I think. And
so
I use these 99% of the time.
I was gonna say the Verite Opens also really good.
Yeah, Verite Opens are fantastic.
And that's the other thing too, is that I don't know if this is like this on the close, but on the Open, one of the cool things about it. Now, I still think the HD100S is better for gaming, but one of the cool things about the Verite Open is that the soundstage isn't as it's not as much of a forward presentation in front of you. Mm-hmm. It's more like everything is all around you, and that I do find to be cool for the immersive stuff. Again, I think it all comes down to like what you're used to, and I could see that being a little bit disorienting for people who are used to
those things,
shiny. Presentations that are a little bit more traditional.
Mm-hmm.
So that sort of holographic all around you kind of thing. And there were some really good drawings where people were like, here's like if you imagine that, like, okay, this is like your head, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can have a soundstage that goes like out in front like this, or you could have a soundstage that goes all around like this.
Yeah.
And then the question is, well, which is better for gaming? And it's, in my opinion, it's actually the latter.
Yeah,
because you want to hear everything, at 360 degrees. Not just stuff in front of you, which is also why the Mobius doesn't make sense to me as a gaming headphone.
Yeah,
right, because the head tracking makes it so that everything is always in front of you, right? Like you move here and it stays there. So
yeah, I see what you're saying.
That but going back to the different genres of games, I think single player. I really like the game. The headphones that have really good bass. Like
I was going to say,
rumble too, and dynamics.
That's what that GX
it makes them a lot
really
more engaging. And yeah, the GX is great for that. I'd actually
Aeolus, the ZMF Aeolus is fantastic for that.
I really want to try the EOS and the EOS.
Oh yeah, that's probably another one that I think like would get us. I mean, again, I've heard it. I've heard Tyler's, and I've heard another one at one of the meetups, and that kind of tuning I think is a ton of fun for the immersion stuff, the single player stuff. I really wish I could get one in for review at some point, but that kind of stuff I think works really well. Same thing with the close back, like the Atticus. I think those are,
The Atticus would be really good. Yeah, close back version of it. Yeah.
Also, I also like the HE4XX because that one has pretty good bass actually.
I actually used to use that for gaming.
XX.
Yeah, the 4XX.
Like the super cheap
150.
Yeah, it just needs it needs a bit of a bass shelf because it does roll off a little bit, but I like that one a lot for single player.
Well, that's the nice thing about the Hi-Fi Man headphones is that all you need to do is add a little bit of a gap.
And then you get bass to know,
You get the bass, Wear glasses, get more bass.
They're the exception to the rule, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, front volume seal. Someone's saying Denon AHD 7200. I have not had a chance to review that one. I'm not sure. So yeah, I guess at this point, why don't we dig into the chat, and if you guys have any questions for us on gaming headphones or IEMs, do let us know. But I think all of us, well, aside from Precog, would probably agree that the best gaming headphone is still the HT100S.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
I would say yes.
At least for FPS games.
So and also for that's open back, but now for closed back, there might be some difference. HD at 20, Verite closed.
I'd probably put the Verite closed and the HD20 up top, just because. The HD20 amazing soundstage, and then the Verite closed. It actually has a really good soundstage. Very very good imaging as well. It's just that if you're playing shooters again, in shooters I tend to like less bass. Like I would prefer a lower bass shelf in games than I would in music.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, you could just have a gaming EQ, down shelf.
I don't like EQ, so I just can't be bothered to do that. Actually, for games, I just turn off all my EQ because I usually add bass. So for games, I just turn it off.
Yeah, I would say honestly if it wasn't for the HD800, I would say the HD700 specifically for games and movies is really really fantastic for open, and you can get those pretty cheap. Yeah, it's nowadays. The way to fix.
Well, especially because people haven't been as popular, right? So you can find it for less expensive.
Should we say just our favorite setups then for gaming at a couple different prices, just to recap them quickly?
Sure. Yeah.
So who wants to start?
So under $200, I don't know where we landed with the earlier stuff. Under $200, I think the consensus for open back is DT 990, and then for closed back it's DT 770, and then ideally with an amplifier.
I pair that with an add-in amp or like a the Liquid Spark or something like that.
Yeah, something that's fairly inexpensive, or if you have a motherboard that already has that output. Because for a lot of people, if they're buying a new PC or they're building one now and they choose a motherboard,
the newer ones usually have really good sound chips in them. They have the amps and the sweet effects,
and they'll market it like crazy on the box too.
Yeah, you'll see it. You'll know with your motherboard.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the under 200 range. Let's say under $500, the pick. Oh, and also for Tyler, it's the PC38X.
Because these ones you can go if you have console too. These are really fantastic for console games.
And they're really good pairing with the GSX. So
and they have the microphone.
Under $300,
and they have the built-in microphone and control.
I think some of the best combos you can find is under $300 you can get the buyer stuff with an amp and a mic. Under $300 you can get the PC37 or 38X. They're both really good.
Yeah.
When you pair them with the GSX, 1,000 or 1,200 amplifier or DAC really. They call it amplifier, but it's a DAC. So those are really good. I can't think of another one.
But under 500, what was the pick?
I'd personally just upgrade to the 1770 just right. It's solely for isolation.
Okay.
I think that's the only thing that I really think you gain when going from 770 to 1770.
And Tyler, any love for the Mobius under 500 over the other options? Is it worth it going from the under 200?
I personally don't. I mean, it's tough, dude. Honestly, I think it's. I would almost, because I don't use it that much anymore. Once you get past the novelty of it, it kind of falls off. So I'd say I would actually go with under 500 because you can get the HT 700 for that price range.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'd say
Okay.
that for open back in that price range.
And close back?
That'd be tougher. I'd probably go, honestly, for close back, I could say Mobius, or I'd go with the
Penrose or whatever.
Or whatever
else
the close back of the that would be similar to that. Because there's not really too many close.
Penrose has me really excited because wireless with no latency, with the Mobius's tuning, that's exciting.
Actually, somebody's in chat that wireless
latency.
What's that?
Pre-com?
Oh no, you guys go.
No.
Are you talking about latency?
No, yeah, I was wondering how do they achieve that? Like, there must still be some.
Well, it's under the noticeable threshold. I was talking to Sankar.
Okay.
I don't remember everything he said about it, but he said that was like the biggest challenge, or one of the big challenges for them, is to try and make it so that it's within acceptable.
That's really interesting.
I mean, wireless technology recently has gotten pretty crazy.
Pretty
I mean, you see it again,
true.
like in the mice. Like this is. I think this is supposed to be like faster than wired mice now.
Yeah.
Like the same stuff that Logitech's using, and like
wow.
Yeah, it's all this new crazy like mice tech is supposed to be actually faster than wired. So I mean, I imagine they're using something similar, but some new audio codec or whatever.
Yeah. So we've done under 500. My pick under 500 is still a Sundara and an amplifier because, well, yeah, music. But
that's cheating though.
No. Okay, so specifically for gaming. Well, wait, can you get a DT?
The Steel series, like Wheezy just said too, is pretty good for close back.
Oh, that's for under
500. Yeah.
Well, even less than that though, right?
I think it's $200 or $300. It's kind of pricey, to be honest. I think, as I recall.
Which Steel series though? Arctis
Pro.
Oh, that wouldn't be my pick though, because like if I want to, this is what I'm thinking. Like if I am used to the gaming headsets, I'm like, how do I level up my audio experience? Right? It's not with another gaming headset. I can't think of one that I would choose. Maybe the PC38X, maybe that one. But apart from that one, I don't know if there's another like headset that I think would be leveling up.
Also, a note on the Pro, I actually agree that it sounds better than the Arctis 7, but for some reason, even though their design seems identical, the Pro is smaller. I actually had the Pro for a bit, but then had to go back to the 7 because it wouldn't fit on my head. Like it would like sit like this. It would be like pulling my ears up because it's actually smaller for some reason.
Yeah, big head problems.
So big head problems. If you have big head problems, careful with the Steel series because they're good. They're especially for the price. I think you get some decent stuff, especially considering that they're wireless. But comfort might be an issue.
Yeah. Okay, so wait, is the DT 1990 Pro under $500?
DT 1990 Pro.
You can find it for around
no,
there, right?
I cheated because I said DT 1770 and that's $600. You can find it around that. I mean, they both come down in price often. I think the DT 1990 Pro sits more realistically at around $500, and the DT 1770 Pro is often available for I think $400.
I'd probably say DT 1990 Pro if you can find it around 500 for competitive stuff specifically, but not for music. I would not recommend that.
There's also actually the drop version of the 17.
Oh yeah, the Go or whatever it is.
I heard really bad things about the Go though. I thought.
I actually had it as well for a bit, and it's awkward sounding, but it still has the good space and like imaging qualities of that are usually found by your headphones. So
Taryn says, I'm going to see if Alex can install some RGB lights in my next Rad Zero so I can finally use them for gaming.
Hey, it actually improves accuracy, I heard, by
RGB improves accuracy.
50%.
Yeah. There's going to be somebody who actually believes that.
Please don't quote me. This was not done on a scientific report. It's all in my feels. So please don't quote me.
Yeah. Okay. So we said HT 700 under 500 for an open back, or DT 1990 Pro for an open back if you can find it for under 500. And for close back, we're going 1770 once again if you can find it under 500. But is there anything else under 500 that we should add?
Drifting Bunnies just said something, and he actually has, he didn't say it specifically, but his headphones, his current favorites are the Sony's, the 900, the the old studio ones that have been around forever. You know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
Drifting. What ones are those? Because those ones, I think, as I recall, have really good.
Well, not for like for competitive stuff, or do you mean for like immersive?
Just a good general headphone. Like it's not. What the heck one was it? It's the one that YaxiPad makes pads for. It's the one that you saw at Can Jam. That was behind the monitor at Abyss.
Wait, that's a $500? Isn't
No,
that
under, like way under.
Oh, okay.
It was a closeback though.
That was a that was it's like 705 or something like that.
7506 or something like that.
7506, yeah.
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 Those are like $100.
NDR 7506, yeah. I don't know, man. I can't. No.
I actually just want to give a quick disclaimer that today specifically, I'm only talking about gaming. My gaming.
Exactly. Yes.
I'm not even considering music or frequency response.
Yeah.
For any of these, it's just like
purely gaming. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like
CD900, the CD900 ST. That's the one.
Oh, okay. Because for me, they blend together a little bit. The idea about like good sound quality and like accuracy and competitive stuff. Like I'd want something for both, and that's why for me my pick is still the Sandara, because this is like you do still get a good presentation of the treble frequencies. It's not overdone in the bass, but still well extended in the bass, so it's still fun, that kind of stuff.
The Sandara for music I think is fantastic.
Yeah,
it's
and also
when I tried using them in Modern Warfare, I cannot game for my life because the imaging on that one confused me personally a little bit.
Well, yeah, and this is again I think it goes back to what you're used to, because especially if you're used to like a Bayer, right?
Yeah.
And the imaging for that's going to be totally different on the Sandara, and that's again why I think planars they're typically not as good as dynamics for imaging, but that. In not in all cases, but in many cases, I think. Yeah, I was just saying, like, I think for me at least, a lot of that stuff blends together, because if I'm thinking about games like Battlefield, right, it's not really a competitive esport kind of thing, but at the same time, it is still it's a head to head. It's like a team versus team
combat.
Yeah, and the sound.
Also, it's one that has a really good sound engine.
Really good sound, like that's the only reason why I like it, right?
Yeah, Frostbite with audio assist.
It's the sound that they have for that is all that whole series is just next level, and so for that something like this is ideal, because you get the best of both worlds. You get all the treble frequencies, and you get like that are for footsteps and stuff like that if you need it on the competitive stuff, but then also you get the fun aspect of it as well. And for music listening, it's also great. But that's just because I'm super biased towards the Sandara, because I think it's the best headphone of all time ever, period. No, I'm just kidding.
Aside from the Sandara, of course.
Of course, yeah, it's a Sandara and then straight to Sandara. But yeah, I think you guys are right. Like, this is the other thing I was going to mention: the DT880 600 ohm. That's the 250 over there, right there. So if
when
it
are you going to
measures
review the 600?
Yeah, I know, right?
When are you going to review this?
Yeah,
we want to see the 600 ohm specifically.
Yeah, I feel like I should have taken bets as to like how long it would be before that was like.
It wasn't the first comment.
It was the first comment.
First and cheating.
Well, I put it in the title. Yeah, yeah, and it was cheating. But yeah, I think if the 600 ohm performs better as far as like detail and that kind of stuff, I think it would actually be a good. I would take if it's like this one as far as the tuning is. I would take that over the DT 1990, because then you don't have to deal with the crazy treble like 8.5K peak.
But that's in music.
What's that?
That's in music though.
No, I know. But, well, what I'm saying though is like, so the 880 still has the treble peaks. It's got 6K, 8K, and 10K, but I take that over just one massive peak at 8K, right? Because at least the balance is better. Like, it's still bright and you get all the footsteps and all that stuff, right? That stuff comes through in a very noticeable way. But it's also not painful, right? It's not fatiguing. And also the bass isn't as, like, I feel like the bass is stronger on the DT 1990.
Yeah,
right?
It is. I think it does have a bit of a hump there, actually.
Exactly. So that's why for me, I would still probably go 880 for competitive stuff. Which I think at the time was the reason why one of the reasons why I initially bought it, like back in 2010. But it would have to be the 600 ohm, and the 600 ohm would have to actually, tangibly perform better.
Well, then we'd also have to compare it to the 990, although that one's pretty mad treble peaks.
Yeah, like I see. To me, it's like because like I'm trying to like think of like what would be the balance in between those. Like not just strictly competitive, but like competitive and useful for other situations.
Well, the ultimate
rather than just switching to a different headphone.
for me, I would say for the ultimate headphone for going competitive to enjoyment in immersion, were the SR1As.
only
like $3,000 later.
Not including an amp. Not including
GT880s to SR1As.
But wouldn't the soundstage and imaging change depending on the
I don't know about that.
But the imaging is so good, and the flat. I mean, it's everyone like they're pretty fantastic.
I see why you say that though, because you could just change the flaps.
Yeah, you just bring the flaps out, and you have a different. You get more bass for immersion. You want more treble and more soundstage. You just flap them out and
flap them out. Yeah.
Someone's saying stop with the candy wrapper already.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Was you? That's a candy cane.
I was eating a candy cane. Yeah.
I have to.
It's Christmas time.
Hey Wheezy, how's it going? I have to agree with Wheezy. I can't get my head around planar imaging for gaming. It just seems so disorienting.
I had the same
love it for
issue.
music, and I completely agree with that. I love them for music, but I don't know if it's because of familiarity with like the way dynamic drivers image, but I can't. I haven't been able to do.
But see, this is the thing. Like I know exactly what you're talking about, and even in music, you hear it like this when you hear a pan going across. Like all the separation and tightness and all the depth and layering and all this other stuff might be better on planars, but I definitely do hear a more even in front of me. Like the bubble is more smooth. You know what I mean? Like the circle around you is a more smooth circle with the dynamic driver headphone than it is on a planar. Typically, it's what I found at least. Wheezy says 880 is definitely leaner than the 1990. Yeah, and for that reason, I think for competitive stuff, I'd probably go with 880.
Yeah, there's like an upper bass sort of like.
It is, a little bit, but it's not that bad. It's like it's only really a thing if you're like thinking that Harman is ideal, and then you'd see that the upper bass is a little and like lower mids are a little bit.
Oh wow! Somebody just is that a flex? I don't understand the planar imaging issue. I have zero issues when gaming on the 1266 TC. I mean, that has to be a flex. I mean, that's just.
I mean, there might be other issues.
I'd say the best for in-game. So Zerb Monkey says with mic. Honestly, the PC37X or 38X with mic or the Game Zeros, any of the Sennheiser ones are fantastic because the mic is so freaking good too.
Yeah, their mic quality is like it's almost. I mean, it's not but almost as good as like something like the Blue Yeti. Honestly.
Yeah. Oh, really?
It's really good.
It's really good. Just go look up sound samples and you'll see how good that microphone is. The one that they have you on. And it has the audio mute. You put it up.
You flick it up and it mutes. Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty convenient.
If I could only do that for everybody else who's in.
Yeah, see, Forest Creative Superflex. Yeah, I see.
So you should have Sennheiser send over an Orpheus for COD testing.
You mean an HE1? Yeah, I'll send them an email and hopefully they'll now say like, hey, this is for Call of Duty Cold War and I have to run some experiments. Let me try the HE1. I would love to hear.
I think Martin, the next
see if they ask you what you want to review next. If you say, I want get some eyes on the HE1.
My next date with Ant is we might try and go to that store that has it.
Oh, the one
that Josh
went to. Yeah. That'd be really cool.
That'd be interesting. I mean, I've heard it at Can Jam. It's really good. But I mean, it was one of those things where it's so out of your like.
That was like me with the Shangri-La scene.
It's like,
and I was
you're like, this is great. But then you're like, and I'm gonna go this way now.
This is completely like sidetracked. But you know what games? Because somebody mentioned Nier Automata having like good soundtracks. You know what games have surprisingly good audio, and I just love using like high-end headphones with. It's Nintendo Switch games. So what you do is that you get an Elgato capture card and you run the feed to your computer, right? And even though the video is delayed, so you can't actually monitor it through your PC, but you have to switch video input, you still get lagless audio through the desktop app for Elgato. So
I have it mirrored, so it's going to be weird.
playing Breath of the Wild.
It's
No, but it has
upside
no.
down, too.
The audio has no lag. You just have to switch the video over from you just have to switch the input on your monitor.
Tyler was ready for this. He was born ready for this.
I'm ready.
And
Let's do this. Except
you
it's
get
mirrored,
some,
so it's all
like,
jacked up.
Playing Breath of the Wild, man, like the audio in that game is amazing.
Okay, so like, I mean, this is the thing. I don't have one, so I don't have any of these consoles, so I can't really comment.
It's mirrored,
but
so I'm not gonna bother with it.
maybe there's a reason to get one of those
The
consoles.
Wii song slap, yeah, the Mii Plaza, or like you're making your Mii music from the original Wii. That was amazing. Oh, now Tyler's got the Nintendo Switch feed going on.
Yeah, it's backwards reverse, so I was like, I was gonna play a game, but I'm not gonna bother that now.
Yeah.
MP.
MP for pure comfort and style in casual games could be a thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, it could be in casual games.
That's a lot. That's quite a premium for comfort and style.
Yeah. So I actually got someone mentioned too earlier. I actually use a tube amp whenever I play on my PC as a heads up. So that's part of the reason why I love my HD800s for gaming immersion as well, because it does elevate the bass. It gives it a little more. It fleshes it out a little bit more. And so
a little fuller sounding, you'd say?
I would say a little fuller. It's one of my more body fills in the blanks of the.
It gets your body ready.
My body.
Actually, I want to say though, I mean, we've been kind of dunking on planars a little bit here as far as like the imaging thing goes.
And your feelings are hurt. I know. Don't worry.
Well,
it's all,
no, because I agree.
This is all gaming performance. I'm just messing.
I agree. I'll be the first to say that. And that was actually one of the things that I did in that video with the planar versus dynamic, where I actually think that just across the board, the dynamics, that's where the dynamics shine more, is in the imaging. But
the headphone is actually pretty good as well.
Headphone would be interesting.
Yeah.
But I wanted to mention though, like the one like benefit though for just stuff that's really detailed, like regardless of whether it's planar or dynamic or AMT or whatever, the stuff that's really detailed, like I do still find that like for the immersion factor, like again, I'm thinking of like Battlefield stuff, that like when you hear a lot of stuff going on and you get the clarity that the extra detail in the headphone gives you, it is a lot of fun. It does enhance the fun aspect. But the downside here is that for all those other games that have crap audio, like we mentioned at the beginning of the stream, it makes us notice how crap the audio is, right? Like or like how what Chrono was saying about some of the voiceovers that he's hearing, where it's like this sounds like it was recorded in a tin can.
So I'll say this real quick. If you're going to use IEMs, they're not the best for immersion though. Because they lack even though they can be bassy. I think the Solaris is really good.
I will say there's an exception to this, and it's an EQ'd Final A8000.
Oh, yeah, thanks for it.
Because it does have a crazy good amount of slam. Same with the Dunu Luna. Like they're punchy as all hell.
I think I still have those here because no one wants to.
I think I'd say for all the recommendations I've made today, they've all been biased by my experiences, which have been almost entirely like first-person shooter games. Like I play a lot of open world games. Like if I think one of my favorite game franchise ever is definitely The Legend of Zelda, followed by Fire Emblem, which would seem surprising considering I only talk about like Call of Duty. But I think that in terms of game audio, I've only cared of like as long as it doesn't have bass and it has amazing imaging, then it's probably gonna be something I really like. And I'm also very picky about like sources. I want the least colored sources. I don't want any extra soundstage stuff. I usually don't want crossfeed. The only one that I like that has done stuff is that GSX 1000. So a lot of things I like are just influenced by those sort of game preferences that I have. Because to me, when I play shooters, I'm not gonna say I'm a tryhard, but I'm a tryhard. So I want things to be like
it's true story,
as precise.
True story.
As possible. So that's
carrying us to wins and wars while Tyler and I are drunk.
I followed it one time. I was like literally following him.
Go where he goes.
I just followed Crowdo and I was like, why is this weirdo jumping all over? He's like hopping all over the place and and then I'm like I couldn't tell what he was doing, and then in the thing he was like 20 kills to 1 death, and I'm over here at like 5 kills and 10 deaths.
I was thinking to myself, like I didn't need to do anything in the games that we played with Crowdo. It just carried us. But okay. Anything else for? Actually, I wanted to mention to for precog, is there anything that you can think of for IEMs that have like really good, like what was it that Tyler was talking about, like the dynamics and like really good performance there for bass?
Like
that would be
slam oriented.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff. Like I'd mentioned the final A8000, but is there anything else that you would think of that would be?
Are we just talking about what has the best bass?
Best
Or
bass
just like
or best
immersion kind of a thing.
Yeah,
immersion.
For immersion.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, definitely the Z1R then. The Sony Hi-Ear
Z1R, yeah, that's,
Z1R.
okay.
Dude,
Yeah.
it's like, oh man, nothing else in the IM world really compares to the Z1R when it comes to bass specifically.
Bass quality.
Yeah, bass quality, and,
Yeah,
and even like it's just the way it slams is incredible. It's just incredibly like it feels really full when it hits. Not like even some of the best balanced armature irons, even the best dynamic driver irons, I don't think they really like. It's just not comparable to the way how good the IR Z1R's bass is. It's incredible. I really need to hear it again. I really want to hear it again too.
Yeah.
But
And that's for like texture and sub bass and
for the texturing specifically, it's just all there, man. And I think the most notable thing about it is that it doesn't really like bloat either. Like not like you would expect, even though the decay is like really drawn out to the longer side of things.
Oh, yeah, the Mest is really good
too.
too.
Mest is supposed to be pretty good too.
So I have done that.
Good,
for imaging, I actually have done that. Mest is the best. What's crazy is I actually
we say that every time.
My my latest Asla Sedna, I had my Mest in and I was listening to music and it broke the Asla Sedna center rubbery plastic thing in the middle to hold it on the thing. It actually snapped it in half, and I was like, why is this not sealing? And then I took it out, and it was still stuck in my ear. I was like, God damn it! And then I pull it out, and it's like there's a split in it where it just came. Luckily, it just popped right out. But yeah, I was like, it split and I was like, damn it! Why are all these nozzles so damn thick?
Sorry, I see a question in the chat here. Someone says, for $400, what's the best for gaming and hip hop music?
Okay, what kind of gaming?
Well, so that's the question, but like gaming, I was thinking about it, and I can't think of. I mean, at that price, there's nothing that I think is like categorically better than like a DT770 with an amp. Is that fair to say? Like
I think that my go-to under $500, unless I really wanted the extra isolation from the 1770, I'd say DT770 all the way. I mean,
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Plus, it's V-shaped really for hip hop. Which
it's really good. It's V-shaped. If you don't like the V-shape, you can EQ it. It EQs really well. Yeah. And I mean, you can find it for as low as like I've seen it on Amazon for like $130.
And get the high impedance one with an amplifier, and then you're good.
Yeah, which is crazy for the kind of performance that you're getting, not only for music but for games. Because I think that those biodynamic headphones, I think that for performance, they're pretty much up there with like the HC600 and Sindara. Really.
Now, is there you know how like with the DT880 there's a difference between the premium and the pro version? Is there a difference? Is there that kind of distinction going on with the 770? I'm not familiar with that. I've
never tried them.
I've
never tried the premium, and from what I understand, it's like extremely rare. The premium version of the 770.
But because like that, to me, it's like that would make I get it. Like the DT770s and that whole series is meant for like they're ergonomically designed for studio use. So the clamp is a bit tighter. That kind of stuff. They have the coiled cable and everything. But what I liked about the premium version of the 880 behind me, I'm going the wrong way. There, is that it's actually really comfortable, whereas the more clampy one is not. And I found the DT 1990 Pro is also not particularly comfortable because it's also quite clampy.
Well, there's two things to that. I know that the 990 has a premium. I don't know about the 770. In any case, what you can do is that one, you wear them in over time, they will flex. Or the yokes are actually quite thin. Like the metal is very durable, but it's quite thin. It's somewhat malleable. It takes some force, but you can bend it a little bit. So if need be, you can just
And like I think like to me the $400 price range is awkward because at least for closeback stuff, because you could go up to the Mobius there or the Penrose, and then the Penrose is actually exciting to me. For wireless low latency stuff. But that's only with the 3D effect turned on, which then brings us back to that original question at the beginning of the stream, which is when you're leveling up from, virtualized simulated surround sound, and then going up to $400 doesn't really level you up in any meaningful way. because you're still using that to get, you know, the soundstage, because otherwise the Mobius, the Penrose, all those ones, the soundstage is quite narrow. So
I mean, if soundstage and imaging is a priority, which I think would be the case for at least FPS games, then I think I haven't tried the Tiger 300. Maybe it follows suit with the other biodynamic headphones from the DT line, but you know, for those, I mean, the barriers are really just really good for FPS games.
I have to actually ask you guys. I mean, have you guys heard those AKG K7XX that used
I've tried
to be?
the K7XX. K7XX.
What's your thought on that?
Very good soundstage. Imaging is not as clean.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they need an amp anyways,
Yeah.
and they're like $80 more expensive than the 990. So
Okay.
I would go with the 990 and an amp, and you would be around the same price. So they're good, but they're not, you know, fantabulous.
We did under $1,000 already. Yeah.
Precog, what do you think? We forgot about these.
What?
The Neo, because it has that bass.
Oh, does it ever?
Plus it has the pretty good imaging and all that fun stuff. That
narrow
might be a
space
fun one.
stage though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little narrow.
Yeah. If you swap in the MX module, it'll open up the stage
Sounds
like a
good,
deal.
Yeah.
Just by like virtue of like all those bass frequencies being cleared up.
Yeah.
The Neo has really good bass. It's just not the most, I think, controlled, especially if you listen to like, if you want that really clean bass, that's not what it is. It's more sort of that like raw, dirty type of bass that if you really like that sort of natural feeling to your bass, that you'll enjoy. But it definitely doesn't match the Z1R for like cleanliness or even some of 64 Audio's other offerings.
You know, I actually it's funny. I've been doing back to back, and I actually like the Mest just a tiny bit better with it too.
Okay.
Mest is the best.
Shots fired.
I take the Audio Monarch.
Huh?
Yeah, the Monarch's
the
really
Monarch.
fantastic too.
You know what? I think the Clairvoyance is probably the more correct tuning. Just looking at okay, this is going to the SA6 because I know you're.
Yeah, I really like the SA6.
I like the
have it in my
SA6
ears
a
right
lot
now.
too.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is that the SA6 is tuning, at least for the bass, is a little closer to that of the Clairvoyance. You know, like it's not as distinctive a shelf as the Monarch.
Yeah, no, it doesn't slip out that nicely.
Yeah.
Or as sharply, I guess, rather.
Yeah.
Best is the Verite Close good for Guitar Hero?
Huh?
Yes. The
Verite
answer is
Close
yes.
Good for Guitar
You know,
Hero.
Zach, when he was actually making the Verite Closed, this was a key priority for him.
This was
I believe he played the Wii
Banjo.
version. Of
Except
the
for him,
version
it wasn't Guitar Hero. It was actually Banjo Hero. he was
Banjo
playing.
Hero, yeah.
Banjo Hero.
Yeah.
Little known Jim on
Mandolin
the
Hero.
Nintendo
And Banjo
Wii.
Hero.
Mandolin Hero.
I hope he's watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we
Okay.
should
So
we should have a Guitar Hero duel sometime on stream, guys.
what, you and Zach?
No,
Yeah.
just see which one of us does Guitar Hero better. You
Not
better
me. It's not me.
Hero.
Definitely not me. Yeah.
Yeah. Guys, we've been going for almost
Hour
2
40,
hours now.
2
So
hours.
we do need to cut the stream, but thanks to everybody for tuning in. Any final thoughts from any of you guys? I'll turn the floor over first to Precog on the spot.
Not really.
Not really.
Yeah, I think
we got to
that's all there is
get
say.
you. I'm surprised. I would have, we got to get you playing some Call of Duty or something. I don't know. we got to have a team.
On Warzone.
Warzone, exactly, a team Warzone session.
Yeah.
Although that kind of failed spectacularly last
Yeah,
time
it's
we
fine,
tried.
Wait, what happened?
Just because it's a game where you have to pay so much
Yeah,
attention
so-
all the time, and you can't really have
Oh.
conversations.
Yeah.
I see.
I think like something like Destiny or something like that, where you're playing as a group
Yeah.
against like AI, would be a little bit more easy to
Yeah.
talk and do things.
So closing thoughts. All right, kids, if you're trying to join Face
Lads.
Clan, biodynamic is your key to victory. You'll get recruited. You're gonna be out there in the MLG circuit in no time. I promise you. So yeah. Okay. In all seriousness, though, if I can only really speak for FPS games. For FPS games, biodynamic or the HD100S, like biodynamic, you can find them anywhere between $100 to $200 for the original DT models, and then the newer versions, $400 to $600. And the HD100, if you're really into it, that's $1,700. So those are my recommendations for FPS games.
I just realized at $200, the HD 560S might be the best all-arounder, because it's So the frequency response is, Tyler doesn't think so, but the frequency response is the most normal out of all of them, right? It's still a little bit spicy at a 4.5K, but it's a better soundstage than the 6 series, categorically better, more even distribution. It doesn't have the crazy treble peaks for Bayer, so it might not be as good for the footstep stuff, but it's still got a little bit of a spiciness.
Well, that might make it better for immersive games where
that's what I'm saying.
Vocals and music to sound more.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
natural.
The frequency response for everything else is better. Yeah.
There's just one problem with that, and this basically sounds exactly the same with more features.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll wait. I have to wait until I get one of those in because I haven't heard it, so I don't.
Well, these are Jeremy's, so maybe we can ask him about it. But about sending them up to you guys next. So I would say, for me personally, I would say pretty much these are probably the best gaming headphones you can get for the price. And then once you jump up from that, I'd say HD700 would be my next purely gaming or movies headphone. HD800s would be another good one. And then I also wanted to touch on, real quick, was I think for immersion, the HD800 on a tube amp is actually really good for immersion because it does bump up the bass a little bit. It gives you a little more warmth in the low and the mids. But yeah, and then also for like really good immersion as well, is if you don't mind the staging, is the LCD GXs.
Yeah. My final thoughts are that leveling up is more challenging than just spending more money, because at least for this specific
for
thing,
gaming, yeah,
yeah, because it is in general, but it feels like with this, if you want to level up from the typical surround sound headsets. Yes, you can do that into the 770s and the 880s and 990s of the world at various impedances with an amplifier. Then leveling up from that becomes another, question for this application specifically, where the gains aren't as significant until you go to something like the HD800 or HD800S. Would you say that's fair to say, Chrono?
Oh, absolutely. Again, remember, here I'm only talking shooter games, but absolutely. There's very little in between, I think. There's a huge upgrade, I personally think, between like the normal gaming stuff that you get from like Astro SteelSeries, HyperX, when you go to something like the biodynamic stuff. But then after that, I really only think like, oh, well, some of the Odyssey stuff, some of the Hyphaman stuff like the Aria, and then the HD100S, of course. But at that point, I'd say, even for someone who likes those things, I think that if you're only focused on gaming, it's borderline unreasonable, and I would advise you to not overhype the differences between something like those two, because for gaming it won't really come through as much. And some of the more entry level or less expensive headphones that we mentioned would pretty much do everything you need for gaming.
This is good. Yeah. And at that point, you're really just you're considering all the other aspects, like what else you'd be using it for, like music and immersion and whatever else. Alrighty, guys. Well, we've been going on for 2 hours now, so we're going to cut it there. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, and we will see you guys in the next one.